Check 1 2, check 1 2. Miami on the Rocks, Casey Chops. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at MIA on the Rocks. Follow us on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Today's guest, I got a legend in here. I don't like using that word loosely. You know what I mean? I got a legend in the music industry game. Engineers, and the audio engineer is a vital part of the process in making music. I believe it often gets slept on, so I like to bring engineers and producers here more so than actual artists, and highlight, the behind the scenes stuff that goes on in the music. And we have all type of listeners here, and for the people that don't know, you have a producer that makes music, and then you have the audio engineer. That's the guy that makes the song sound like the way it makes the song sound like a song after it's recorded, and they're responsible for all the sonics and all the sounds and things that make music what music is. I got the legend Lou Diaz in here. How are you, sir?
Good, bro. It's good to see you again, bro. Yeah, it's been a minute.
Wow, bro. You're a legend
I appreciate
in music, bro.
Oh, man, listen.
In music in general, bro.
I appreciate that, bro.
Let's just start off by, establishing your track record and how important you are. Real quick, just run off some names of the people that you've worked with.
I'm not that guy, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
no, we talk our shit on this podcast, bro.
No, I've been doing it for a minute. That's what it is. I always tell people, man, you do something for a lifetime, it accumulates, So I was just fortunate enough to be part of like the whole Miami scene as it grew around me. You know what I mean?
Let's drop some names so people, the average person can,
I mean, dog. So I'm a 5 Grammy nominations, 3 Grammys in, and about 52 platinums and gold records. So I've been doing it for a while, and that includes a lot of people, like from Khaled, Pitt, and the list just goes on. People,
right. So we're gonna get into your story. We're gonna get into everything because you have a long history of in your career.
For sure.
As far as music goes, bro. When did this start for you? Because I first heard of Lou Diaz when I was in high school during the Pitbull era, the Diaz brothers.
Right.
And you were making all the beats and all the music for Pitbull back in the day. You made, from I Chico, right?
All that
Culo,
shit.
To all that
shit. John too. Yeah, we had a crew going at the time, but yeah, we pretty much were the ones that like nurtured all the music, brought producers in too, because Jim Johnson worked on the project, Lil Jon.
Right.
We brought people in, but yeah,
where does
the
it start?
nucleus.
It doesn't start there, right? Obviously,
no, yeah, dude, so. Yeah. So I was on it for. Shit, I want to say, like, I started as like a musician. I was like in a band, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then my brother is 5 years younger than me. So we both had sort of like a different musical influence as we were coming up. So by the time I was doing the whole band, like I set out to be a drummer. I was gonna be a drummer in a rock band. That was basically my thing for music. Mm-hmm. And that morphed into like, sound and shit. It's a long story.
You were born in Miami?
No, I was born in Santiago, Chile.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I came here when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
So yeah, pretty much I was born and raised here. So then my brother and I, once we started doing music together, like my brother got old enough and he was like, he had the hip hop bug, and back then was bass and freestyle music and all that shit. And that's really kind of like where like our musical, sort of like influences mixed together. We both influenced each other. And then that started like the journey, like both of us together as producers, me as an engineer, Hugo as his own producer as well. So we had a good mix of like styles that motivated both of us to move forward. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, so is the Pitbull era like the first, like, what's your first credit? Like, what's your first big record that you could?
My first gold record was on the soundtrack of the Blade soundtrack for the movie.
Oh, wow. Wesley Snipes.
Yeah, Wesley Snipes. Yeah. And that was, what was his name, man? I'm forgetting people's names. This is terrible.
All good.
But anyway, he was a producer, a good friend at the time. And he did the record and then, landed on the soundtrack and whatever. But now, like, before Pitt, my engineering career was already kind of established as like a recording and mix engineer. I was already like buzzing and doing my thing or whatever. I had my credits. Matter of fact, I had won my first Grammy for Who Let the Dogs Out the year before I signed Pitt.
Wow, you did Who Let the Dogs Out?
Yeah.
That's crazy, bro.
Yeah. Okay. That's a whole other story. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So then Pitt comes along.
Right.
And he's out of here. What do you see? You're one of the first people involved with him, right?
Yeah. So what happened is like Pitt, what got us to even think about getting an artist. My brother and I were doing a lot of remixes for Sony Latin. So at the time, I was already doing I had entered the Circle House system. You know what I mean? Circle House gave me like a huge platform. Like because their studio was new, and I just happened to waltz in at the right time. It was like that luck or whatever. But they're the ones who really took me under like their system and like gave me a platform. You know what I'm saying? Because as the studio was growing, I couldn't buy advertising like that with the studio saying you want to work with him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like I owe a shitload of gratitude to them and just what they gave me as a platform, me and Ray C. So we grew with the studio. So that was all going on, you know what I mean, in my life. But me and Hugo were always kind of working together, you know, like not really formally the Diaz brothers. We were just doing music together. And we started doing remixes for Sony Latin at the time. So Sony Latin was trying to do like the dance remixes, you know, a little more like rhythmic, right, like for power. And knowing Eddie Mix and shit, you know, I was like, all right, well, let's do that. So as we were doing remixes, that's when we kind of started the brand for the Diaz brothers. And we did a remix for Ivy Queen with White Clef. And we flipped it to a sample from Hot Chocolate, that I Believe in Miracles record. And so then Eddie heard it, and Eddie was like, yo, we're going on that song. So they added it. So what happened is, you know, at that time, you know, radio. So at the time when they played that record, you know, back then, you know, a Latin artist was never on American radio. That shit was unheard of, you know? So that record kind of broke locally, and it got spread around the country a little bit. So then the president of Sony was like, what the fuck? This is amazing, you know? So then they shot another video for our remix, and Clef came down. So then the guy at Sony goes to me, man, you guys got to go, you know, you should go to the video shoot. So we went to the video shoot, we met Clef, and then my brother asked him, he's like, yo, bro, like, you know, you made it, like, give me some advice. You know, and he's like, well, he goes, you guys are here, you made it this far. He's like, if I were you, he goes, I would find an artist and invest yourselves in that. So I was like, all right. You know what I mean? He put me on a mission. And then literally it was like, I want to say like 6 months later, I had a session from Luke. So Pitt was signed to Luke Records.
Right.
And so I go into Luke's studio in South Beach. He used to be down in South Beach. And I go to mix his new album. So I'm just doing, it's a regular gig. Not a regular gig, you know what I'm saying? It's my everyday thing. I'm doing my thing.
Right.
And then Pitt's there, but I'm thinking Pitt's the intern. Like I'm thinking he's like, an intern from like an engineer or whatever. And so when I bring the record up, it was called Lollipop. There was a feature. You know, I knew all the artists on Luke's repertoire. So I was like, what the hell is this? You know what I'm saying? I was like, it's a new voice. And he's like, it's me. I'm like, you know what I mean? Because in my head, I'm thinking he's this, like he's an engineer.
Yeah.
So I was like, what you mean that's you? And he's like, that's me, man. I'm like, what? And that sparked the conversation, you know? Wow. And so I thought to myself, damn, that's, you know, I'm looking for somebody.
Yeah.
Me and my brother had talked about it. And then when I met him that day, we had like a little like 20-minute, 30-minute conversation, and we just connected. You know what I'm saying? There was just something there. The time was right. And I was like, yo, this kid's got the lights are on, you know?
So this is right around like 2000,
This is about 2000.
Yeah, and you know, we're hearing like, you know, the New York shit going on heavy, and you guys come out in with a totally different sound. It's more up tempo. Like, I mean, we always came from, like you said, Miami bass and shit. But you never really had like a hip hop artist like getting on that up tempo stuff when amongst all the New York grimy, gritty, dark shit. You know what I'm saying?
We had that,
what made you guys want to like experiment with that and not go to like that with what was easily able to fit in?
Right.
You know?
Well, you know what's funny about it, right? So think about it. So at that time, you also had Lil Jon. Lil Jon was you know, creeping up. And
but even he wasn't even on.
Right. He was doing the down south thing. You know what I'm saying? So, but the crazy part is when we signed Pitt, oh my bad. We signed Pitt about really because of his what do you call it? His ability to rap. Like at the time, that we didn't go into it thinking 4 on the floor, down the middle, pop star. We were like
Latin.
Yeah,
like,
Pitt was a hip hop.
Right.
You know, he was a fucking. He would dice you up.
Yeah, he would go to the ciphers and.
Oh no, for sure. So because Luke used to take him around.
Right.
And basically call people out of every city, come out, man, battle, and Pitt would just. Rip everybody up. So like people don't know that about Pitt, you know what I'm saying? So when me and Hugo heard him, we were like, you know, we were in the hip hop tip. We were actually in that world.
Right.
But then after we signed him and after we got in the studio together, after we worked, little by little, I was like, man, you know what I mean? Like we should be touching. Because you know, I come from my background, my people were all Power 96. I mean, that was my world.
Right.
So then little by little, we started seeing that. And I thought, man, bro, we got to do more music. Because Pitt kind of fought us at the beginning about that. He was like, yo, you're trying to turn him into the party man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But Pitt, out of all the artists I ever worked with, what impressed me more is like he would like we might have a disagreement or he might say like, you know, like I don't agree with that, but he would go back and think about it, and then he's like, man, you're right, and he'd come back and then do it, and I was like, you know what I mean, like
most artists he wasn't closed-minded.
Nah, not at all, man. He was, and that shit's what really to me, like every time the project evolved more, it got me even more excited because I saw like he was
open to try.
Yeah, he was looking to go. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Yeah. So then by the time Kulo came around. Like, that even made sense, because remember, that wasn't even our record. That was Mr. Vegas' record, Pull Up. And it was just a remix that got crazy, you know what I mean? And Power kind of just launched it. So then that even gave him more of a reason to say, yo, this is my lane, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's how it started kind of going in that direction.
Right.
Yeah.
That rhythmic sound is what we're missing today, I think.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny how that kind of went away.
Yeah, I have a theory. That, like, I think the reason Latin... it was going to blow up the way it blew up anyway, regardless, because of the demographic shifting in the country. But I have a theory that the reason why Bad Bunny is, you know, as big as he is because hip hop got so urban. It lost its rhythmic sound.
It did.
That people that were in the middle, especially the Latin, Latin audience, you were able to. The girls would listen to hip hop back then because it was more rhythmic and you could move to it more.
Right.
But now these young Latin girls, I'm generally speaking, don't really want to listen to this trap hood hip hop. So they gravitate the other way to the Latin, the reggaeton. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, think about it. It's the same thing as back in the day when you had the gangster rap. You know what I'm saying? It was real, testosterone, male driven. And same thing, the girls would go to rhythmic. That was like the move. You know what I mean? So, and now it's trap.
Right.
And like that's like the more, and drill and all that crazy shit. You know
but there's no rhythmic anymore. So it's like you have to choose far right or far left. Far left. You got to go trapped out or you got to go straight all the way to reggaeton with it, you know?
Yeah.
So Pit happens. You guys are moving. And then at this time, we're like in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
I would assume the next big move for you is you start working with Khaled heavily now.
Yeah, so what's funny is it was all kind of happening in parallel. You know what I mean? Like my engineering career was already going because like Pitt was even a thing that was like how I say like with Circle House because they gave me the platform like they weren't like saying look you're our guy like I never directly worked for them but I was their guy. You know what I mean? And Ray C as well. And so when I signed Pitt, when I got the Pitt, I was kind of like I went back to the studio like yo slow down with the booking like I'm gonna try to focus on this one. They look at me like. Pitt was nobody, right? Like no one knew him. They were like, "What? You got three heads?"
You were freelance engineering at that time.
The whole time. I've always been. Yeah. I mean, like that's my family.
Right.
But I'm saying, I was always a freelance engineer. Right. But I just worked there. It was my home base.
Okay.
So we just had that relationship. But when I came to them, and I didn't like formally come and say, "Hey guys, don't book me. I'm doing this." It was just kind of like a gradual thing where the studio manager Lourdes was like, "What are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean you don't want to do the session?" I'm like, "Yeah, because I got this kid." And they're like, "Well, like." You're in 5 years, you won your first Grammy. Like after my Grammy, I worked a Puff and I did the Family Continue. I mean, it was on. I was working Beyonce. I was on it on the mixing. I mean, on the engineer side. So they were like, "Well, you crazy?" And I was like, "Well, I'd seen that vision." So I was trying to kind of doing both at the same time. So I continued on. So Khaled was already happening because when Pitt broke with Kula, when Kula finally went national and it broke, Khaled was already doing his thing. Like, obviously in radio, you know the history or whatever. But he was already in the studio. Like we did a whole reggae album that he was still in the vaults at Circle House.
Right.
So, and I had tracked that from him. And BB's the one who like put me on with Khaled or whatever. That's how I met Khaled. And so Khaled was already happening behind the scenes when I was already working on Pitt. You know what I mean? We were burning the candle both ends and we were just going. And then Khaled started bubbling to the point where the Listen record was like now a reality, like he was gonna do it. And I did that record. So I did pretty much every album from that point,
Wow.
Not since then, I've done records that I've been not a part of anymore, but yeah, so that was happening, you know what I mean? So then when Pitt broke, Khaled broke, and Ross broke, and Flo broke.
The Miami Circle House scene.
Yeah. And it was weird because we were you was caught in that storm and that wave, which is dope. It was, and looking back on it, we were like, super like lucky to be part of it, you know what I mean?
So like, can you name like three Khaled records from that era? Like All I Do Is Win, did you do?
Yeah, All I Do Is Win, I'm So Hood. Pretty much all of them.
Right. So for the average person listening, Khaled and these artists, they make a song, and when the song is finished, they send it to someone like Lou Diaz. And what he does is he sits there at the computer and at the big mixing boards that you see in the videos and the movies and shit, and he actually puts the song together and makes it palatable to distribute and for the listener and for radio and things of that nature. So you're doing Khaled stuff. What's happening at this point? Is it you're kind of falling back from the producing aspect of it? Because Pitbull at this point is global now, right?
No. I mean, not global, but like we got out of the local scene, right? Like he had Kulo running away. So what was crazy was I was kind of juggling both worlds, right? I was the executive producer, owner of the label, along with my brother and my other partners, with Pitt, who was an artist that was breaking, exploding. And I was still going in the studio and doing Khaled and doing, Cash Money and, all this other shit. So it was a crazy time. Wow. But definitely Pitt's project started pulling me away from that because it was just, it was on fire,
Right.
But Pitt wasn't like, I wouldn't say global, but it was our first national, and matter of fact, and then another thing was going on at the same time was Lil Jon was coming up. And I knew John from back when he was
the crunk stuff.
Right, and I knew John back from when John was with So Def. He was like an A&R DJ. So when we connected Pitt with John, it was on some like John said, "Look, man, my album's done, but I'd like to put the kid on the record somehow." So we sent Pitt over there, and my partner Rob brought him over, and he was like, "You know what? I'm gonna do a quick little like just an 8-bar loop beat on the drum machine, go in and rap." And Pitt did that Cuban freestyle, Kings of Crunk. That's what that was.
Wow.
And it made the album.
Wow.
So then, these little nuggets started kind of raising pit stock more and more. And then we did the Too Fast, Too Furious soundtrack with Oye. That, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it was bubbling. But at the same token, I wasn't like letting the engineer career just fully go, because I was kind of like, rocking that too,
Wow, bro. At this time, would you say that's like this era? Like, what would you say is like the climax of when you were the most busy? I mean, is it?
Yeah, right before Pit, it was busy on the local side, right? Like back, like Circle Hall was getting really, really big, and I was like, leading up to that Who Let the Dogs Out Grammy, right? It was crazy because it was like a revolving door, and it was a lot of local artists. And I mean, to be honest with you, I could forget some of the big artists, but I mean, like even E-Class,
right?
Like I was like, that was one of my first clients. Right. I was like the first engineer, like Jackie Hill's album,
Flow Rider,
all that stuff, all the old stuff,
Wow.
So yeah, so that was a real busy time, and then just because of the Pit and doing the parallel thing, doing the Diaz Brothers thing, because then remember, then the Pit thing spawned for us as producers the Lloyd Banks thing and the Yankee, and so it was, bro, our life was.
How many hours a week would you say you were in the studio?
I mean, I was in the studio every day. I'm still in the studio. Like,
For how long would you say?
Back then, you'd work a mix with an artist in the room. Like today,
Oh, really?
Yeah, because like, today I'm mixing on a laptop basically.
Right,
you know what I mean? Back then you had to go into a big room to mix.
Right.
And usually the artist would attend. So it's very rare that I would mix a song by myself in the studio. It would always be so. When you got people in the room with you, it tends to be longer.
Right.
You're kicking it, you talk, and it's longer. So, but now it's changed so much because of technology. Where even like with the most recent shit that I did with Khaled, I mean, he just sends it to me. I do about 80% of it.
Yeah, we're gonna get into all how the technology.
But I'm saying, it changed. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I was so busy.
So how? Let's say 2004, 2005, around this era. How long is it taking you to mix a record with the?
Usually back then we'd book a day for a mix.
So you knock out a mix in a day?
In a day, 12 hours, yeah.
Okay.
But, sometimes you'd be done. Like if you were to...
listen, for the average person, 12 hours for one song to get one one song sounding to be ready,
I know,
12
crazy.
hours.
Like to me it's normal, but it does sound crazy.
Yeah.
But what it is, if you think about it back then, between, the breaks and the talking and, it would spread out longer.
Right.
If you would take back to back all the work you actually do, probably about 6, 7 hours, 8 hours.
And the breaks are almost required to mix a record because you have to take breaks. Your ears have to take breaks.
Correct.
So that's crazy, man.
Yeah, man.
So we're gonna get into a lot of and there's a lot of producers and engineers that listen to this shit. So we're gonna get into some geeky music. Producer talk
techie stuff.
Yeah. So around this time, you're one of the few engineers, Lou, that come up under analog and digital. You come up under track and digital Pro Tools. What was it like for you transitioning from recording to tape to? Because I miss analog, bro.
Yeah,
I miss it.
I hear you. I definitely, like, matter of fact, earlier I was in the studio and they have a 9000K, and then I was like, damn, I love this console. But what's weird is, like, honestly, like, it's been years, man. Since, like, I mean, literally, I go put a laptop on top of the console. I got, people are recording studios now, But when Pro Tools came along, like, in retrospect, it's cool because I really got the last tip end of tape, you know what I'm saying? And got into digital tape, which is Dash, and to Pro Tools. So I saw Pro Tools come into the scene, and but I was like early adapter. And not in like that I bought a rig or that I was in it. I was just like, that should make sense to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I just saw like how convenient it would be. Because, once you do a couple of like disastrous recalls, which for people who don't know what a recall is like, you have that big board, you have all the buttons set the way they're set.
All the work you did.
Right, and then you got all the gear behind you that's all patched into a patch bay. There's an assistant writing everything down, and all the milliseconds of every delay. Sheesh. So what happens is an artist says, man, we got to change something, or, I don't like this. You got to go, call the studio. The assistant goes in, he has to set the board, every button back to where it was, all the gear. Wow. And then you go in and it never comes back exactly. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So a recall was a bitch. It was a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
So to me, when I saw Pro Tools, I was like, what? Click, and I'm back?
Yeah.
And it's guaranteed I'm back where I was?
Right.
That shit right there sold me. I was like, let's go,
Do you think an artist can, you've never thought of, in 2022, let me just go back and do a record how I would do it in the 90s and use tape and do all that?
Yeah, you know what's funny? We talked about this. Yeah, we did. Matter of fact, not really like where I did the project. It was like a buddy of mine who wanted to get that vibe, and he actually took like all his synths and recorded to 2-inch, and then went back to Pro Tools just to get the analog vibe. But I think, what's funny, it was beyond just the tape and the equipment. It was also the time, bro. Because think about it, what you were making music on was analog keys.
Motifs and MPCs and shit.
And you were wiring to the console. Like today, everything's virtuals in the computer, you know?
But that's what I'm saying. To do a whole project, analog, even use the MPC, take out the Triton. Because I listen to like those old R&B records, and I compare it to new R&B records, and I just don't get that same goosebump feeling. And
it's definitely a part of it. The sound's a part of it. But to me, I also think like if you look at every era, I mean, and I know this is weird to say, but not weird, but like the songwriting too, man. Like it's like, you know what I mean? Like it's a different vibe. So they were coming from another angle.
I was talking to Derek, and we talked about just how the process of recording vocals from a microphone onto tape. He said something about a documentary he saw where it's like you're actually recording energy from the room onto the tape. You're capturing the energy of the room. With digital, I guess some of that gets lost, and it's just a digital representation. It can't be the same.
Because tape, all really tape is, I know it's a weird way to maybe describe it, maybe it'll make sense to people, but all tape was just rust particles. And then the magnetic head would go and align the rust particle a certain way. That's what sound was.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And now it's zeros and ones. So there is a definite difference in like the way you capture it. It's not really the old way. You know what I mean?
Right.
And ironically, digital is a much higher fidelity, much better. But, you know, the human ear gets used to something. And when you're used to it, that's what we call warm.
Right.
That warmness is really like a deficiency. But it was a good thing. You know what I'm saying?
It was a deficient. Oh, okay. So
no, it's like in other words, if you look at it from a fidelity perspective, right? Like a scale from 0 to 10.
Yeah, it's lower quality,
lower quality,
for sure.
But it was a vibe. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's funny. It's like think about this: vinyl versus, you know, now you're as a DJ,
right?
Vinyl just had a vibe,
right?
I mean, it's a pain in the ass, right?
Right.
Skipping and all the problems,
but it's like those imperfections in the record, and like imperfections.
There's an actual analog groove in there, man, just moving around. It's wild.
Beauty and imperfection. There's a tat I want to get. It's 2 Japanese letters. It's called. It means the beauty and imperfections.
Dope.
You know.
Dope. That's nice.
But yes, man. So now in today's world, bro, like artists are recording in a hotel room, bro.
Yeah,
with the like thing. How do you feel about that? You come from big SSL $1 million studios with consoles and booths and high equipment, and you got dudes recording Grammy songs in a hotel room in a corner, like with
You'd think that I'd be more like, fuck that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I've never been a purist. It's weird, like, because like Pitt's records, which Alfie, which was another story, but me, Al, this guy Bobby Vieira I was telling you about, who's a director now, we all come from my rock band days. We were all in a band together. Like Bobby was a singer, Alfie was the bass player, and I was a drummer. I ended up signing Pitt. I put on Alfie to record. To this day, Alfie records all of Pitt's records.
Wow.
And the majority, I want to say, not the majority, every major top 10 record was recorded in a hotel room behind a mattress, rig, you know.
Really?
Yeah. In Tokyo, all over the world, yeah.
What?
Yeah.
So, damn. So I mean, so it can't.
I mean, you got to know what you're doing, right?
That's what I was gonna say. How do you approach that though? Like,
because like if you know, like once you like record in the studio, and listen, technology was also able to let that be possible, right? Back in the day, it would sound terrible, but you know, if you know enough of acoustics and you know, hey, you know what, we could throw up a comforter and get it nice and dead, and you bring the mic with you. You know what I mean? All you're really creating is try that dead sound. With vocals, it's really not that difficult. You know, you got the whole chain with you when you travel. So for that reason, it works. You know what I mean? But it's Alfie has to be the one.
Right.
You know what I mean? If it's another guy, you could fuck it up and make
How
it
do you
sound
feel
crazy.
about? Because I'm always I'm not I'm like a young purist. It's weird, but like I'm the type. Like, how do you feel about recording sitting down?
Yeah,
I always.
That's weird, right? I don't think I've ever had. I mean, mind you, I haven't tracked it.
I feel like I see it a lot now.
Do you really? Yeah, I haven't experienced it because I don't record as much. You know, I'm always at the end of the project, so I don't even know how they record it. But I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's to me, whatever makes the artist pop. You know what I mean? If it gets them there.
Right.
But I can't imagine because everybody stood it. It was like an energy thing. So I don't know.
Yeah. Coming from radio, they tell you to like stand up, to use your whole diaphragm.
Yeah.
And like, you know, and I'm just listening to all these records that just sound so like airy. Like it's so not with the diaphragm.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's just so throat and airy, and it's not singing. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, and I'm seeing all these videos of all these big artists. You know, they're sitting down, they're holding the mic. It's a handheld mic, and I'm like, bro. Like, what's going on right now? Like, is there any rules or no? They're just going in there, just.
You know what's funny that when you just said it, man? What it is like, the rule thing, like, you know, because like when you're recording, especially when you're in the recording process or the production process, there's so many rules from a sonic technical perspective. But then you bring the human element, right? You bring the artist has no freaking clue about that shit, and they just do what they do.
Right.
So those worlds always clash together. I mean, always been that way.
Right.
And so to me, I always find it like interesting that, because look, like, an artist that doesn't know what they're doing may make some shit that technically you're like, yo, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
But then it gets out, and then it makes it, and then people are like, I want that sound.
Right.
And so now this fuck up now is the new standard for, you feel me? Like, you can't stop it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I at the beginning, granted, I was like, you know, when I was recording, I was like, what the fuck, you know? But little by little, I started realizing, nah, man, this is just an ever evolving thing, you know?
You were like, for these trends that happen, like you were there when the auto-tune thing happened, right? No one ever used to sing with auto-tune. You know, I remember what they say. Usher, you know, faulted T-Pain he said he destroyed music because T-Pain started using auto-tune. What was your take on it at that time? When
I mean, like, the first time I heard it was that Cher record. I was actually editing at Circle House upstairs, and I heard the record, I think in the car on the way home or something. It was obviously like on Power, one of those stations, and I was like, what the fuck is that, you know? And then I think I remember autotune was already kind of a thing, but none of us really were like opening it yet. You know what I mean? Like, because Pro Tools wasn't even that prevalent yet. And then, I don't know the story, but I know indirectly, I know whoever did it was like, kind of like, you know, you mess with buttons when you
just fucking around,
and he fucked it, put it all to 100 and was like, this just sounds kind of cool. And let it ride, because the vocal, they were trying to correct her. You know, let's use a new tool to see if we can correct it. Because, you know, every great singer still needs a little...
Correct,
You know, and a lot of people...
Well, even though you did, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but they didn't have that back in the day.
No,
Whitney Houston did not have auto-tune.
None of it. Nobody had auto-tune. Yeah. There was no pitch correction. It was called Do It Over. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. But what I'm saying is, even a legend like Cher or whatever, she's a great singer, but because that tool comes in, you know, techs are going to be like, yo, bro, let's try it, you know, because sometimes our producer would be like, man, she didn't hit that note quite right, but I love the performance. All right, well, why not nudge it up? It's not like a diss on her not being able to sing.
Right.
So this guy was just kind of playing, and I think he was like, man, the producer heard it, I think, and was like, leave it. And they released it. Everybody was like, what the hell's that sound?
Wow.
And so then I saw it. I remember I opened it up, and I was like, yo, this is wild. And then Payne really basically
made it like,
he made it
the standard.
He made a household name.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you got people who have no idea about production who know autotune.
Yeah.
I mean, you
sitting in those sessions, mixing those records, were you for it, or you like, look, this bullshit again?
Nah, because it was another movement. I mean, to me, think about it, Payne was directly influencing me in that at that time, all the hooks for Khaled were written by Payne. I'm So Hood was Payne.
Shit, almost every hip-hop song at the time was hooked by Payne.
Correct. So to me, I was like, and the thing about Payne is Payne can actually sing.
Right.
So to me, I never saw it as oh man, this is just somebody. Cheating. Right. I think that came later because people who couldn't sing and couldn't really do it were still shy about it. But as that spread, you know, Payne had a lot to do with spreading it throughout the industry. And then they got more and more people who couldn't sing going, oh, this shit really helps me a bit.
Right.
And it evolved into like, fuck it, I don't even got to be good. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, I shun on that too. But I mean, like I said, man, at the end of the day, bro, to be honest with you, even if you pop off a record with all the help in the world, it's what you're saying and the writing and what you're bringing, the energy you're bringing.
Right. The
tools are secondary to me in that you can't build a career on that.
Right.
Because once that fad's gone, you're gone.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? The staying power comes in with what you're putting down. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, how do you feel about that in today's world? It seems like, I have a theory as well, given social media and things. I feel like we're not going to have any more. This is how I feel. I feel like we're not going to have any more A-list artists. We're going to have. I feel like we're not going to have. We're not going to have any more Rihannas. We're not going to have any more Drakes. We're not going to have any more like that Future. That's the last of the crop. Now we're just getting songs. Not artists, we're getting songs in and out. Who don't even know who the artist is? We just know this is trending on TikTok.
Right. I can't even keep up too, man. Like it's wild. I'm like, yo, I'll be hearing like an artist. I'm like, who's this? I look, I'm like 10 million followers. I'm like, who the hell is like, you know, like how did this happen? But that's social media. You know what I'm saying? Like that's to me is a huge disruptor in music and in pop culture. In that it look. To me, it helped the artists, right? Because it took the power from the labels and the powers that be, the gatekeepers. And like, think about it, even radio. Like now an artist, look at Kodak. Kodak built his own tribe,
right?
And labels basically a bank,
right?
They're not, you know. I mean, not to say that they don't push, you know. Of course, they have a campaign, but what I'm saying is, what made it happen is just Kodak straight, like, you know what I mean? This is my people. I'm doing my music and the story. But social media gave them that than
Right.
ability, and
Right.
all the rest of them. You know what I'm saying?
Do you think the music suffers because people are more into like the celebrity of the person? You know, like
I
more.
think social media, like we talked about. The matter of fact, that conversation with Pitt about this is that whole instant gratification vibe is what's happening today, and it's because of social media, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about it, if you rewind the clock back before we had even MySpace, right? There was nothing going on. Matter of fact, with Pitt. When we signed Pitt, there was no YouTube, there was no Facebook, there was nothing. It was like, yo, we rent a van.
No shortcuts.
No shortcuts. Hit the street, here's some vinyl, go see all the DJs. Pitt was a workhorse, you know what I'm saying? To this day, it's like that. But the thing about it is that it didn't allow so many people in. It was either you had the crazy work ethic or you had to be somewhere, you had to get in there.
Right.
And now,
The floodgates are open.
like that and the laptop, and I'm a producer, artist. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which is cool. I love it because it helps artists that might have never had a shot, but now you got saturation.
Yeah.
You got
you got to mine and find the good music. You got to mine for it.
Exactly.
And now radio doesn't because radio used to dictate what was hot.
Correct.
Now radio doesn't even dictate what's hot. Now radio's got to follow what's
right. Radio's just trying to stay in the game.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
like with you know playlists
Wild.
now and shit and
So I think it's a natural. To me, social media is another technology that just came and changes everything. You know, not only music but culture. So, I mean, I feel some type of way about it in that I loved. My music was always like you're saying, like the last school or the last what do you call it? Wave, or era. The Drakes, the Rihannas, superstars.
Right.
You go back. You have Michael Jackson. You have Prince. You have these staying powers that are going to be on forever. I feel like a lot of the songs I hear today, and not to say that these artists might not go, you fast forward another 15 years, but it just doesn't sound to me like they're going to be around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just sounds like they're here tomorrow,
just
here today, gone tomorrow.
Development, just they got lucky,
Yeah, and I think it's also because of the audience is what the audience is asking for. If it's just, think about it, like you rewind back the clock, no matter where you are in time, 10 years, you got a 9-year-old who's now 19. You feel me? So like they're out of the scene. And now they're the new scene.
Right.
So if you look at it just from like the iPhone, you look at a kid who grew up without an iPhone to the kid who grew up with an iPhone, like it's just part of reality. It's freaking two different universes. You know what I'm saying?
But there's some kids like that give me that feeling that I'm like they're gonna be around. Like there's the Bay Area's got some 2 kids. I love Simba. There's a kid named LaRusse.
Right.
Like there's kids that are really
they're there because the talent's always going to be there.
Yeah. You got to have substance to maintain longevity. Do you still like it, bro? Like, do you still get that exciting feeling from the music that you used to get? Do you still get someone send you a record every once in a while and you're like, holy shit, I love this record?
Yeah, I do. Definitely do. I still love mixing because honestly, like with everything I did, mixing is something I needed to continue doing, but that was like what I did. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I have an identity, and to me, I love doing it. So yeah, I definitely still enjoy it. But definitely there was times that I was like, I'm mixing the same record over and over again. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially with trap, it was like, what the fuck?
So I feel like I'm DJing right now, bro.
Exactly.
It's feeling the same, playing the same record over and over, bro.
Right. So, but like you said, there might be a no-name artist that hires me, like some, from overseas or whatever, or an artist that, that's new to the game but plugged in. But there's something there. Yeah, that's just still excites me. Probably more so now because of all the traffic and all the, the saturation.
Right.
But it definitely is something that I it's funny because like I watched the other day, they showed me this like reaction video of like this hip hop kid listening to like old music that and you didn't think about it. Like, damn, they don't know about like records like Queen, shit that's like old, right? And you watch the reaction, you're like, yo, that's wild because it shows you the difference in like that shit would influence the next generation, and now it's like getting so thin that there's no going back.
You're
to
right.
Roots. You know what I'm saying?
Right, you're right. But then I think about, what if it's so old to them that it's new to them?
It is. That's
like,
what I'm saying.
Yeah, like trends. Like, shit, bell bottoms might come back eventually because it's
fashion's the same way. Yeah,
fashion's the same way, you know? Like,
but it's cool. Watching the reaction though of them was what you just said. I was watching them discover a song that I grew up with. It would be like you watching and listening to some early Drake. And some kids have no idea who Drake is.
Right.
I mean, not that that's possible. You know what I'm saying? But in theory, like on the old music is a little bit more like even like the Beatles, for example, super old, right?
Right.
But the fucking songs are timeless.
Right.
But you're thinking, well, I know that because that was my parents' songs or whatever.
Right.
But nah, and you see a new generation, they know what the name is, and you hear a song, they're like, what the fuck? It's wild to watch them.
Crazy.
Because that you see the power of music. You're like, oh, that shit is no joke. Like, that's really a good song.
Yeah.
And so that tells you, because, it's like you take a kid from one planet, put him on the other planet, and you get the same reaction as the people who heard it the first time.
Right.
So to me, I feel like there's those people, as a industry and as an audience, if we, collectively support those artists.
Right.
That's how you make timeless artists.
Right.
You know, it's got to be something about the music, man, the song.
It's just getting these kids to experiment. That's what it is. Like, don't be the Me Too.
Yeah.
Don't be the Me Too guy. Just experiment or try some shit.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
But
Like,
you're always gonna have those, man.
Right.
I mean, remember when J. Cole came out? Like even for J. Cole, he was like, whoa, kind of like a boom bat at the time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like wow, but it connected. You know what I'm saying? Because he's just
He had substance to him.
and he stayed with what he was doing. You know.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah.
And then, bro, there's this new technology that came out. I don't know if you're up on it, but it just came out for Serato. The beta is out, and it's literally reshaped my mind
I was just gonna
and what
mention that
can
to
be
you.
done. Huh?
I'm on that already. What are you
And-
talking about?
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Atmos.
No.
Okay.
No.
Give me.
It's stems now.
Oh, yeah,
like,
yeah.
Serato can isolate
Yeah.
an acapella. It can.
Yeah.
If you were to tell me, bro, out of this time I've been producing, you could tell me that I could just strip an acapella out of any song and sample it, bro.
Man, yeah.
That changes everything.
Everything.
Now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And honestly, like you're gonna like. As engineer, well, as producers, as artists, to labels, you're gonna deliver now. Like we always delivered stems because when I do a session on a Pro Tools session, when I'm done, I just take like for example, like say, all right, it's approved, it's done, the mix is done. I take each sound and record it back to Pro Tools with all the plugins and all the and so the kick, then I record the snare, then I record the hi, and I go all the way through until I'm done. And then I assemble a new session at 0, and that's the master that the labels get. Because they want to be able to give that to people to do remixes and whatnot, right? So that's where stems come from. Labels are like, well, shit, we can like now, because before they would put out the instrumental for radio, an acapella maybe.
Right.
But now it's like, man, you want just the drums, you want just the bass, you want this, it's all there.
But it's crazy. You're trying to tell me that you could send me an MP3 of a song, and I could just press a button, and it isolates the acapella, and I could take it out and do whatever I want with it, bro.
Yeah. Stemming is a movie.
Just go back into all the old shit that I couldn't when you were like, damn, I wish this kick wasn't here. I could sample this shit. Now it's like you can go back and do it.
But the dope part about that is that from a perspective for the labels and even for the artists and the writers is that if you have that out in the ether and some kid in his bedroom in freaking France downloads, gets like the stems of the drums and puts it together with some other shit, creates something new. Now you can, now the label makes money off of that. So it's a business move. You know what I mean?
Like rejuvenated sampling.
Yeah, of course.
What type of records do you? First of all, would you describe your sound? How would you describe your sound
as a mixer?
As an engineer. And then what records do you like to mix the most?
Hip hop is really like what I'm known for. I did country records and I've done rock songs and all that, but the majority of my work has always been, hip hop. But yeah, I guess my known is like the low end, like the whole getting the boom big and all that came a lot from like working with Khaled, because remember Khaled was like, we got to be bigger than everybody else, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, and I always loved it. I was a drummer. So for me, it was natural. Like I wanted that. I want that kick to hit you in the chest, So over the years, doing that over and over and over again, I kind of got that sort of reputation or whatever. And so I love it. I love drums. I love, so if you love drums and you like low end, hip hop is like, like in my wheelhouse.
Are you responsible for that, Lou? Like having the master of a song be so loud? Like, you know what I'm saying? Masters never used to.
Yeah, because now you have a mastering engineer, which is one step after us, right? So like when the producer finishes or the artist finishes, I mix it, they approve it, and then I print like the final print, like say the radio version. Boom, we print, and then it goes to mastering, and mastering does like one final sort of like EQ and compression over the whole thing to just control it. Maybe it needs to be a little brighter, a little low end. You know what I mean? Real fine stuff. And then when it comes to an album, they also even out all the songs because maybe I'm not mixing all of them, so they may sound different. So they get them all to sort of sound feel good across. One's not louder than the other, that sort of thing. And so those are the guys who really determine how loud the record could be, because loudness is weird. Loudness isn't about, hey, how loud is it on the meter? It's called perceived loudness. So it could be low, but it's perceived to be loud. I know it's weird, but yeah. So now
I definitely notice it when I DJ.
Yeah. And then the thing that's what happened is DJs back before we had all these standards, it was just about I need to be loud, because when I go to the club, I want to hand it to Casey Chops. You don't want to throw it on, and you have to like tweak it up. You just want to play and be like, damn, this shit is hitting. So that's why the whole loudness war just started.
Almost to the point now where when I DJ now, it's like we ignore distortion meters now.
Oh yeah.
Until you hear you have to have it distorting until you actually hear the distortion. You're like,
clipping. Yeah. Listen, when I with Khaled, it started there. But even now, like when I turn in, because what I'll do is when I work with a client, I'll send them an MP3 just to like approve it, to listen to it, because a lot of times we're not in the room together, and I'll limit it. I'll put a limiter on it, and it's fucking I slam it, because that's what they're used to hearing.
Yeah.
You follow what I'm saying? Of course, they're going to hear the one without it, but it's just to give them an idea what mastering is going to sound like when it comes back. You follow me? Like a preview.
Yeah.
And so they can hear from that perspective and also hear from without it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then mastering will do that process way better than I. That's just a little step I do for reference.
In my opinion, it just sounds good just not to limit the shit at all.
Yeah, of course. Like, listen, if it was just like, if the client was also like an engineer or had, some producers are, really versed in technical, guys, then yeah, they'll be like, hey, don't send me nothing with a limiter on it. Just send me the regular mix. I want to hear it. Cool. All you got to do is turn it up. You know what I mean?
Right.
But most artists, like I said, some artists don't even know what the fuck it is that I do.
Yeah.
So they're just like, why is it low? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like, you avoid that by just going, here, bro.
Do you feel like what you do is kind of like a lost art? Like, do you try? Are you like these new kids? Do you have any aspirations to kind of mentor some or kind of like get them?
I mean, through the years, like working at Turk House, just being in the old regime where you had, a mixed room and you had an assistant engineer, a runner and all that. I did get to do a lot of that, like just over the years. Like, for example, like, matter of fact, this morning we were talking about that with Ben Billions. Like, he was an assistant of mine. You know what I'm saying? So think about it. Like, I've had 6 Grammy winners now that were under me. So that mentorship happened naturally through being in the room with me, getting to know each other, working together. You know what I'm saying? And showing them shit, and then their hunger or wanting to learn or whatever, and parlay that into something else. But now I've done. I mean, I do a lot of talks to schools and shit, and just because it is a different world in that. Whoever's coming up now has a completely different experience than I do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just the tech alone.
Right.
So I try to just kind of give them that perspective. Like, look, bro, don't look at me as he did it this way. Like, don't do it like that. You can't.
Right.
It's a different world now.
Right.
But just the reality of it, get them to. I feel like I'm the bearer of bad news when I talk to kids.
Yeah.
Because I kind of bring them back to earth. Because you
have to, bro.
Right. It's hard to get wrapped up in the plaques and the Grammys. Listen, that's great. But I always tell them, like, man, listen, if you're paying your car note, bro, by tracking an artist. You making like your bills, you won, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you're making a living in what you love.
Yeah.
That's crazy, So when you appreciate those little things, then you got more building blocks to build on,
How do you feel about like, the landscape of just mixes that you hear, like on the radio now? Do you feel like? I mean,
it's funny, man, because like again, music is consumed from so many different angles that it's a mishmash now. Before it was like we were talking earlier about radio. It was structured. You knew the records that were coming, especially when you were in radio. You knew, okay, this guy's gonna drop a record. We know how it's all gonna. It was a system.
Right.
So everything kind of went through the right guys to say, not necessarily me, but the guys that were doing this. And now people are consuming music.
Wild West,
yeah, it's like Spotify. It's fucking YouTube, and so you get all sorts of stuff. But I there's definitely a lot of like differences and shit. You're like, damn, that shit sounds crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
From standard. But like I said earlier, but if it connects to the audience, it's like, damn. And then
like there was that FNF
wild, bro.
That's huge. It's this big, the FNF with that girl, gorilla singing, and it's huge. And they're sending it to me, and there's like, bro, there's no mix on it, bro. I'm like, what is this? I'm never like, and I'm hitting my DJ friends like, does anyone have like a mixed version of this?
Right,
and this shit is huge. It goes off, but it sounds terrible, bro.
Yeah, bro.
And I guess our ears are just too. The average person just doesn't hear it.
And it's just sometimes like I see that like look, my first experience with matter of fact Kodak Black when Ben brought me in that project, which is at the first time in the Painting Pictures. It was right before Kodak got locked up. So I had a little meeting with him. We just sat down. I talked to him about the process, just because he was one of those artists where because Derek tracked all his stuff. So Derek would tell me, he'd be like, yo, bro, we finished the song. And Black would just throw the headphones down and be like, all right, throw it up on YouTube. And he's like, bro, he's like, yo, bro, we gotta I gotta mix it a little rough, and we gotta bring an engineer in. And Kodak was like, why? It sounds good. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
It made no sense to him.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of have a talk with him because I told him, look, Kodak, I don't want to change your shit so much where you're like, you know what I mean? Because I understood what that wasn't a thing. It was in his mind.
Yeah.
So he was like, he would listen to me and he was like, yeah, all right, I got you. It makes sense to me. But still, when I finished the records, he was always like, yeah, they sound different. It wasn't like he didn't like the mix. They just sound different now.
He just fell in love with the version that he was listening to at the crib, like.
Right. So it took me a while because I think I did 4 albums with him. It took me not a while, but I was very mindful of saying, okay, let me try to keep it as original to the demo as possible, which made me go against a lot of my rules. But that made me, at that point, I was already really established and understood enough to go, people are like, some engineers, I'm not putting my name on that shit if it sounds wrong. I'm like, bro, you gotta, the best job you could do as a mix engineer or engineer is for you to just be invisible. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's his vision. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, you fast forward now and you look back, you're like, some of the records don't sound great. I mean, it sounds great because they were mixed and they were
Right.
mastered, but they weren't done the way I thought. But they connected and people love them.
Right.
And I hear them now and I'm like, damn, that just sounds kind of nice. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
it just evolves.
And it's crazy, man, because I think I can make an argument, and there's probably stats to back this up, but it feels like most people today probably consume most that music that exists on phone speakers.
Right here, bro.
On phone. So it's like, are you mixing for the phone now, bro, almost?
You know what's funny? We went through that where we were like, man, we got to listen to it through here to see what's up or listen to it on the pods, you know? And we do a little bit. But because at the time, right, like let's say the peak of Khaled, not Khaled's still peaking, what I'm saying, but you know, as we were getting like really, really crazy, it was really still club, you know? It was where it mattered. So it was like, yeah, the phone, the laptop's cool, but we want to make sure that the experience for the listener was going to happen, you know, in the middle of the live, you were going to get that vibe, you know?
Right.
So that it was about loudness, it was about big and all that. But then, little by little, as that kind of like changed, yeah, the phone became more of a, hey, we sure we're hearing the boom in there? Because you can't.
Yeah.
So the tone of the boom, we'd add more distortion to get the boom more.
That's what I was going to bring
wild,
up.
yeah.
That's what I was going to bring up to you, too. Like, I had somebody tell me that, like, you know, you could have the dopest shit hitting on the best speakers, and they were telling me, like, bro, you have to add a little distortion to the 808. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, because that's how it shows up on a phone speaker. Otherwise, the 808 won't even show up on a phone speaker.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's wild.
That's crazy, bro.
Yeah.
Okay, so as far as your the lifestyle that we live, we both, you know, in the music industry, it seems like we're all vampires, you know.
Yeah, we are, bro.
Has your I want to talk about the lifestyle of what we do and how to maintain our health and just kind of, you know,
that's a good conversation.
What do you have you always been a night guy, and do you still mix in the wee hours of the morning, or how does your schedule work?
You know what it is? I think it's like, you know, generally speaking, you're right. Everybody works at night, right? That's the thing. I mean, there's like one artist, the only artist I remember in history, Trick.
Really?
Trick is an early bird, bro. It's wild. Matter of fact, the first time I found out is because I was leaving Circle House and Trick's in the lounge. And it was like 7:30, one of those late night sessions. And I'm leaving. I'm like, Trick, you work tonight? He's like, no, I work today. I was like, what do you mean today? He's like, no, I'm waiting for my guy. I was like, yo, my man, it's 7:20. Like, what do you mean you work today? Yeah, bro, Trick was like early bird. Like, the only guy. I mean, I'm sure there's other people, but for the majority, you know, 99.9, yeah, we're freaking vampires.
I heard a study and from a scientist, and he said that the human mind is the most creative when it's half awake and it's half asleep.
Yep.
So, which is why when you're tired, wanting to go to sleep, or when you just wake up, is when you're the most creative.
That's what people and you're also the most open for like influence and shit. But you know, the other thing too is, I remember like when we were first starting out, and it was, you know, we were night people. When you get around like-minded people, so that's why we all know each other, because we all understand each other. It was also the fact that like the world kind of goes away a bit. You know what I'm saying? Like the phone stopped ringing.
It's peaceful.
Yeah, you know, the wife, the fam, everybody's you know, out, and now it's our world, you know. So it's like no matter how, I remember back in the day when early on with Hugo, we'd start and we'd always talk about, man, we gotta get started early, man. Like, this is crazy. Yeah. And we would do it. We'd make it, you know, we'll come in the studio 1:00, but it would just be like bullshit till about 10. It was, all right, here we go. Yeah. It was just, it's just, you're fixed that way, you know?
Yeah. What do you, because, you know, we live an alternative lifestyle. What do you do, you know? Like, say there's an engineer who's, you know, just graduated high school, he's 18, 20 years old, whatever, and he's starting to live this life. What are some things you would tell him, you know, just to be mindful of?
Yeah, I would say like, you know, it's hard to say it in retrospect, because at the time, had I told myself, I would have told myself to fuck off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like, wait, what are you trying to do?
Exactly. Are you crazy? You know what I'm saying? But it is a different world. And now, because of technology, you're able to sort of work in your own space. You can kind of create your own.
Home studios now more than ever.
Right. Like, to be honest with you, like, one of the things that happened is by me being at home more, to be honest, I work better and I work faster.
Oh, so you work from the crib?
Yeah. So what I used to have a little studio in Miami, but I bought a house in Atlanta and I built not a nice studio. I'm saying it's like a nice little mix room for me, my little cave, you know. But I go in that world and I'm left alone. And what happens is, with Pro Tools, it allows me to be working on a record. And if I'm burning out or I'm feeling like, I just need a break, I can double click and be on another song. In the studio, like, that's the artist paying for it, and we're not gonna work on somebody else's record.
Oh yeah,
but it gives me good perspective, because I'm able to compare songs. I could stop when I want, come back. So what I would say to somebody who's young is, you know, don't take that for granted, because back in the day you had to be, you burnt out quicker. You know what I'm saying? Now you can kind of control your workflow. You know.
What time are you going to sleep nowadays?
4 or 5 every night. Yeah.
Waking up like at what, noon?
Nah, like 11.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah, bro. But you know what's crazy? I'll go, like, obviously if I go on a family vacation or something, what I'll do is, like, I'll just go hard the day before. I'll go to like 8 and just stay up. And then that night I'll go to bed early because I'm tired.
And then live a normal life on vacation.
Live a normal life on the vacation because I'm getting up at 9 in the morning. But when I get home, like let's say I take a long vacation, which is rare, but if I go, with the fam, I get home and I'm like, damn, I'm on this morning schedule. I'm getting up around 9, getting up around 8.
During the pandemic, I like that's what happened to me. I was like,
for
when
real?
the clubs closed, I'm like, wait, I kind of like this life. Like the birds are chirping, you wake up and shit.
You're like, this is what everybody else is like.
Yeah.
But then as I get back into my groove, slowly but surely, bro,
Yeah.
my clock goes. Because like after these many years, your body has like a circadian.
Especially, you've been doing it. How long? 30 years, 40 years?
30 years, yeah, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Damn.
I'm locked in that 4 to 10 in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah, it's wild. But I mean, listen, there's definitely nights that I'll be like, man, I'm tired. I'm gonna go to bed, 12. But I just generally, out of a year, 90% of it, I'm going to bed 4:35 in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Yeah, bro.
I mean, it's the same shit with you.
Yeah.
Your days off, right?
I think, I say to people all the time, it's like another job just in itself to just control our schedule in a way that keeps us healthy. You know what I'm saying? Like as far as eating, what's your...
Yeah.
Back in the days, were you a drinker? Were you like...
Oh, God. Holy crap, yeah. So me and my brother were like pretty wild. I mean, we weren't crazy, but
most people that do this,
we got it in,
yeah.
So like, think about it. During that time, we were getting, I was getting the first taste of success, like money wise as an engineer, and so 'cause think about this music shit. You broke the majority of it. The first half you broke,
Yeah.
So like, I was coming out of that. I was making money. Then we got Pitt. Pitt came in. Pitt was a part here too. Still is. Not crazy, but the three of us were. It was fun. It was funny.
Right.
So but think about it. You're also young, so you had much more staying power. You'd go. We'd fucking be up all night and whatever. We shake it off. But definitely, what I would say is like, don't get caught in that too long. Do it. You got to get out of your system and you got to celebrate. You got to enjoy the shit.
Right.
But like the club life, man, even for a DJ, that shit can burn you out.
I tell people all the time, bro, I
partake
work
too much
in
in the
it, I
party.
don't necessarily participate in it all the time.
There you go. Like it's cool to be like, yo, bro, this is gonna be a good night and whatnot.
Every once in a while, yeah.
When that becomes the majority of the shit, then you have a problem because that shit could really to me, and really ultimately it'll hurt you because it'll hurt your career,
Yeah.
So we definitely got wild. We definitely did some crazy shit, but overall over a span of time, we worked. We just it was working,
Is there anything else as far as lifestyle that you like to do? Like, are you?
You know what's funny, man? That's the thing. I don't really got hobbies, bro. It's funny, dude.
Yeah.
Like I'm big into like learning shit. Like I'm into like science and shit like that. Yeah, like biotech and all.
What's your sign?
Huh?
What's your
Leo,
sign?
Leo.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think about.
What are you?
Scorpio.
Scorpio,
I think about this too, bro. I'm like, I need a vacation, right? And I think to myself, like, bro, what the fuck am I gonna do on vacation?
It's weird, right?
Because my life is a vacation.
Yeah, it is.
Like most people, they live like a mundane life, and they want to escape that mundane life to just wild out and go on vacation. But my life is a vacation, so I don't really have. I don't know what I would do. Like, what am I gonna sit on a beach? I would lose my mind. So I haven't taken a vacation, bro. I need one, but
my wife is the one that keeps me. Like if I didn't have her in my life, I don't know, man. Because guys, you leave us to our own, devices, man. We go run ourselves into the ground.
Yeah.
So she'll keep me like we'll go to the Bahamas and stay for 4 days. But you're right. It took me probably 10 of those before I was like actually relaxing. Because I'd be on the beach after like a day or time. I'm like, all right, bro, listen, I gotta keep like, what are we doing? like this is cool, but
how many margaritas can I drink?
Exactly. So, but then you also like look back on it and realize that shit did recharge you, get your mind off of shit. So I think like if you have a family, a wife, kids, whatever, whatever your scenario is, you got to think of it like that's also a responsibility in that it's a schedule, right? Like, so if you're going 5 a.m. and you're booking yourself out, and then you got to cram in the family shit because you can't.
You got to schedule that in too.
Yeah, and so it's not that it's work, but it is part of your schedule, like and like listen, just coming down right now. Like I just came from Atlanta, I had to get my passport, so I was up in Brickell. So I got up at 4 a.m. this morning. I already slept twice today because I went in the morning, boom, then did that other interview, and then went home, slept. Showered, came in, seeing you. Then tomorrow I'm back. I'm in for then I'm flying back home. And so if you can push yourself, but you know your limits and you're able to schedule everything good, you're good. But you got to have some time to decompress, man. You need.
What is your day like? What like as far as outside of the studio? So, you're with the fam, but like for example, like in the whip, are you listening to music? Or are you more of like a silence guy? Are you a podcast guy? I'm more of a podcast.
Yeah, I'm more of a podcast guy. Back in the day, I remember like leaving like the studio every night. I would put on AM radio, talk radio. It was funny. I just didn't want to hear shit. I was just like, you know what I mean? It would be some fucking UFO talk, whatever the fuck it was. It wouldn't matter. I was just like listening to that shit. And then little by little, I started getting into podcasts. That started becoming a thing. And then, like I said, I'm really into like learning about shit. So like, like stuff that I thought I fucking hated in high school. Now I'm like, damn, like I'm digging physics and I'm digging, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just
What do you like to? Why? Like, you a Joe Rogan guy, or what do you?
Yeah,
what are you into?
I like Joe Rogan, and because of the whole regenerative medicine, there's all this other shit. I'm a big tech head. It leads me down sort of like rabbit holes where I'm like discovered different people like Dr. Sinclair, who's like real big with like
I'm a big
research.
sleep guy.
A sleep guy, yeah.
The Dr. Sinclair, right?
Oh, Sinclair, you're talking about no, but he does like a lot of the NMN and all the like the DNA. Really, it's genetics.
Okay.
Because that's where the new frontier in medicine is,
Right.
Like we're gonna, with a music revolution, we're gonna have that shit in medicine. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So it's completely different from music, and that's the part that I like because it turns my head off from this.
Right.
You know what I mean? So.
Dope.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I'm listening to music now. But I'll put on like fucking like smooth jazz or like
I was gonna say recreationally. That's what you're.
Yeah, it's wild. Like the last 3 years, like in my house in Atlanta, had the whole like the zone shit with all the sound systems everywhere. So I hooked all that shit up, and now I'm like, man, I throw in like dinner jazz.
Wow.
It's just funny, man. It's like it just brings my temperature down.
You know what I'm really liking, bro? Afrobeat, bro.
Yeah, Afrobeat
is like it's like R&B dance hall to me. It's like
background music. You don't think about how much that shit affects you during the day.
Yeah.
So if you're dealing because like in my life I've done obviously a lot of the music shit and all that, but I have a lot of businesses that are like on the sort of the surrounding, the circumference of music with different people. So I got a lot of shit going on. I do tend to spread myself thin in that sense because I like it. So there's times where I'm like, all right, you know what? I got a lot going on in my head. You know when you can't sleep because you got so many ideas and what shit going on in your life. Yeah, you're right. That background music does for you for the day. It kind of chills you, brings you down a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've always been this guy. Like I can't focus on anything if music is in the background because I start paying attention to the music. Is that like I would never be able to do work or no?
Yeah. It's funny, man. But that background music though, like the coffee house shit, or like you're saying, even the Afro, that shit kind of, if you keep it low, it just it sets the mood to chill you out a bit.
Dope, bro. Is it as far as what are you working on now, man? How first of all, Atlanta? What were the motives to go to Atlanta?
So Atlanta was something me and my wife talked about a long time ago. Just on some like having another place to live at. You know what I'm saying? Just another
real
experience.
estate market's good and shit like
yeah. And back then it was like shit. Atlanta was Atlanta's still affordable, but it was like super affordable. But my wife works in television. So she would fly through, she started working at this company in New York, and they were sending her all over the country. She was like an artist, basically, flying. So she would do like 4 states a week.
Oh, wow.
So it would be like, for an example, like we would pack up, like if I would go with her on the road, like because I had my gear, I'd be like, I'm going to go on the road with you this week, for example. We would leave on a Sunday night, boom, fly into, like say, St. Louis. And we wake up in St. Louis, go Uber into the TV station. She would do a little 5-minute spot. Uber to the airport, to the next town.
Wow.
And we do that for a week, come back on Sunday, pack it, and do it over. So when we were doing that around the clock, I was like, there's trips I couldn't go with because I'm working on my shit, So then we were like, damn, they would fly through Atlanta. So we had family up there. So we're like, man, we should try to grab a spot up there. It'll save us a trip, Plus it'll be a little different, vibe. And then that kind of materialized into actually doing it. And so I think was 18 that we moved up there. And we were looking for a while. We kept going up there. But what blew my mind was just the prices. I was like, you know what I mean? Because Miami's always been, it's not, Miami's crazy expensive now, but it was always up there, So we finally made the decision to sell our house here. So the plan was to have like a little townhouse here because, I'm obviously here all the time. My whole shit happens here. But when we went up there and then we got the house, and it was just a dope experience. It was kind of like the jazz music, bro. I decompress up there. It's funny.
Are you like I'm like out the way, like in the...
Yeah, I'm in the cut a little bit. Like I'm like northwest of Atlanta, about 30 minutes. It's kind of like I lived out here when I was out west from Miami. You know what I mean? So it's the same sort of situation.
You got land and shit, like it's
not major, like a half an acre.
Okay.
But we got a nice sized house, and it's like we did it because like. We got kids, and there was like, you guys should downsize, because we had like a 6'4" here, which is a pretty big house in Florida. And then everybody's like, you guys should downsize. And we're like, nah, man, because then, the family will grow. And, and it worked out because we got family comes down. We got a big old house and people could stay, and, we're not on top of each other.
Are you plugged into the Atlanta scene over there, like the music scene?
A little bit. I was already kind of plugged in because I'd worked, at Patchworks before, and I worked at Tree Sound and all those studios. But by the time I went up there, everybody was already retreated. At least the mixers were all retreating at home. I was already mixing half my shit at the house, even here in Florida. So like when the pandemic happened, nothing changed for me. I was like, I'm already at home. You know what I mean?
So I was gonna say, like, is there any light you could shed on like just the difference between like the scene over there and over here, as far as just the inner workings of the industry?
Yeah, it's a different vibe. Like the people are real cool. There's that Southern hospitality shit is real. You know what I mean? Like all the people that I've encountered have been real super chill people. But because I don't get out into the studios much, it's been more about sort of like where I live and, like I've been, obviously.
Just your piece kind of in the cut like that.
Yeah, it's been that. And but even my experiences in going into, because I've gone back into Patchworks in a couple studios to work, it's just the vibe. It's a different take on Miami. Plus Miami, from where I was going 100 miles an hour in the studio to today is a whole nother Miami. I mean, you got a trillion people moved here that weren't even around back then.
Yeah.
Like the new Miami is all new people.
Right.
For you, I'm sure you're like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
I love the Latin shit is huge right here.
Oh no,
I love it.
I mean, listen, to me, look, Miami's in my DNA. Like this is always gonna be home. This is it. But that to me is almost like a nice little getaway. So now the back and forth, I'm enjoying it, and I like it because I can come, get my energy, do what I got to do here, and when I feel that, like, I need that break, and head back.
Are you doing any music on the Latin side? Have you done any Latin?
A little bit. I worked with I did on the Latin side? Fuego. I did some Fuego shit a while back. Yeah. I did a couple albums for him. And I know I'm gonna forget freaking names, bro. I'm terrible at this shit. But yeah, definitely did a bunch of.
Are you producing anything, or just busy with the engineer?
A little bit. I'm doing mostly engineering now because I've gotten more into business shit that I was doing. Like I'm doing more endorsement shit on the engineering side or whatever, and a little business. And on the production side, it's slowed down a lot only because like developing an artist is like people are like, why don't you do another one? I go, bro. That shit is, people don't understand how much.
Yeah.
It just takes so much of your life.
Social media now, it's like.
Correct. But production, every once in a while, I'll do like, some remixes and shit like that. Dope. But I'm not actively like looking for chasing that shit, Yeah. Because I'm busy just like the engineer constantly keeps me working. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Your endorsement with Waves.
Oh yeah.
For the people that don't know, you have the Waves plugins is industry standard for what everyone uses. Yeah. How did that happen? And
that was funny because like we were in Florida, and and the thing with my life has always been, you get so wrapped up working around the clock that like people are like, why aren't you doing this? I'm like, bro, like when? You know what I'm saying? Like I'm working and I go to bed, I get up and I work again. So it's very difficult to do like people hit me up, but you should be doing a YouTube channel. I'm like, bro, when? Like I was telling you earlier,
like how? Like when?
How, bro? You know what I mean? Like, so for me, that was my thing. And at one point, I remember, I think what happened is when I had my house in Florida, the one we sold. I had a little room, but it was like a writer's room. It was like a little pre-production room for me to make beats, invite people over, just, write. Not maybe record a vocal in the room, but it wasn't anything fancy. But then I started working there more and more as technology allowed it. I was coming home and staying at home more, and that turned into a mix room. So at one point I was like, listen, I want to gut this shit and make it into an actual room because I can't be mixing in here, And so at that point, I was like, all right, let me put a budget together. I got to build it. Let me get some equipment, blah, blah, blah. And my wife said to me, she's like, I don't understand why, like not working with these pro audio companies. I'm like, yeah, you're kind of right. I didn't even think about it.
Damn, wifey dropped the gem like that?
Yeah, so she was like, let me put an email together. And she just threw an email and just shot it to everybody.
Wow.
And Avid hit me, fucking Way, everybody hit me. And I was like, oh shit, that's right. And think about.
Are you like the first engineer to have an endorsement deal?
No.
Oh,
I'm yeah.
Because I've never heard of that, bro, before.
Yeah. No, I mean, endorsements is real common. I mean, these guys are much bigger than me. They're in all these companies. But really what happened is like, I've always had a little bit of luck and just been kind of blessed and being at the right place at the right time. And when Waves hit me, I talked to not the owner, but the head of Waves. They're based in Tel Aviv. They're in Israel. So he calls, he's like, yeah, man, I would love to work with you. Let's build together. I'm like, all right, cool. So, they gave me a bunch of free shit. I got all my stuff for free, which is great. I was like, cool. And then, we worked out a little plan or whatever. And he's like, look, maybe we'll do like a little tutorial thing. And I was like, all right, cool, no problem. So by that time, I was in Atlanta already. So they were like, well, let's just shoot up there. I'm like, all right, cool. So we went. So in my mind, I'm thinking, I did a little research what other people had done. And I was like, notice that people weren't really giving, like, you're talking to the people, but you're not really giving them anything. You're not telling them, yo, this is how you do this. Just one little thing. And to me, I was like, oh, fuck it, I'm going to do a little vocal change and show people,
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of people. There's no secrets. Anyway, so I did it. We shot it. In my mind, I'm thinking, all right, cool. An engineer, what am I going to get? Freaking 5,000, 10,000 views? Whatever, cool. But that's what kind of got me going into the endorsement thing is because that video really did well. Like, I don't know what happened or who got a hold of it or was it because I gave some little gems away? But that shit got 2 million views. So I was like, it blew me away. I'm like, what's going on? And I'm thinking maybe if Waze is pushing the button and, pushing it and advertising. And they're like, we're not doing shit. This is just going. I'm like, wow. So then that kind of opened my eyes a little bit more. And then so I started attending like NAMM, and I did a talk at the Avid stage, and I got an endorsement deal with Avid, and then Amphion and all these other companies. So that kind of turned me on to the business side of what I do. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's what I've been at for a while. It's not that it's super complicated, but it's just another element that allows me to, you know what I mean?
Pass some knowledge down too.
Yeah, pass knowledge down and just do, like some opportunities for myself as far as like, diversifying what I do. You know what I mean?
What does your home studio look like nowadays? Like, do you have a board, like a controller?
No,
you just
no,
own
no.
the laptop?
Yeah, I built like a custom desk where it has like enough room for my laptop, and I got like a Slate digital controller, built in or whatever. And man, it's the laptop. I got my my Dutch and Dutch mains, and I got a pair of Amphions, real small, chummy fabric. It's done nice.
Everything in the laptop.
Everything in the laptop, bro. I got my 2 chairs, man. I got a sub packet I use, which I love that shit. It's funny.
Pro Tools?
Pro Tools, yeah. And then, I got a bunch of, because of the endorsements, I got like freaking every virtual synth and all the shits,
The gold platinum.
Yeah.
Pack, the fucking.
Right. But really, honestly, for what I do, all my go-to stuff is there. And, it's cool because I get to beta test a lot of this stuff before it comes out. And we do a lot of like work together and plugs and stuff. And there's a lot of like things I got coming out. They're going to come, people see with Waves or whatever.
Outside of Pro Tools, what do you do? Do you have anything else? Any other programs you like to use as far as DAWs?
Yeah, the one DAW that like I had like a love-hate relationship with Ableton. And actually, Ben Billions, he was like, man, you gotta learn it. And I was like, all right, fuck it, let me learn it. Because I knew Logic. Once you know one, you kind of know them all.
Yeah.
But live, Ableton's real different,
Yeah.
So at the time, I remember I was, trying to figure it out, and I wanted to throw my fucking laptop out the window. Bro,
It's the one DAW I stayed away from, dog.
Bro,
I never really.
I know, right? So I battled through it though. And I got out there. It took me about a week or two, working. I just made make sure, because at the time I was really producing. Like me and Ben were producing together a lot, and lunch and all that, So I made myself get to the point where I was making music on it. And then once I came out of that, I was like, oh shit, okay, now I get it. You know what I mean? I like the sound of it. And in one of the beats that I made at the time, this is years back, Khaled was in New York, and Ben was working with Khaled at the time. And he's like, yo, Kanye's asking for some sort of whatever it was at the time. So I made the beat on live, and Kanye loved the shit. And so that made me go, oh shit, yeah, I'm keeping this.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Put the battery in your back,
Yeah, kind of. But then as I went on, I ended up producing, honestly, bro, a lot in Pro Tools because I know that so well.
Yeah.
And I already got all my shit there,
Do you think there's a difference in the sonics? Because I was at with Cool and Dre. I was at their studio, and they were just telling me that. This was years back too, and they're like, "Bro, you have to go back to FL, like because it's like an industry standard.
It
like
is.
The 808s just hit different.
It's
like
a sound, yeah.
they
all do have a sound. Because remember, even now, like feature-wise and what they can do, man, every one of the freaking DAWs that are out there are all amazing, right? Even Cakewalk, all this shit, everything is great. But they all have a sound, that's for sure. Like I love the low end sound of Ableton and FL because trap is FL. Like you want to sound like trap, you better do it on FL. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know it's a nuance, but when you
it's almost like when you say something sounds warm or like a certain sound. It's a certain thing with the 808.
Yeah, like Logic has a very sheeny R&B sound. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not no more because now it's evolved.
Right.
But back then, I could hear when someone gave me a Logic session. I was like, yo, this is crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I went from Logic to FL, bro. I was always like, bro, my drums just don't hit in Logic, bro. I went to FL and I didn't use a limiter. I was like, holy shit, bro.
Yeah.
Everything's red, but this shit is thumping, bro. And it don't.
And think about it. Like I was saying earlier, like once one guy hits with certain sound, that's all it is, man. People, once the audience says, I like it and I want more of that, like they like the old saying, give the people what they want, right? So that should work. Why are you going to reinvent the wheel? Do it till the wheels fall off. How the next thing comes,
How do you feel about, there's a format that a lot of big producers are doing now, and it's like loops and shit and splice, and now producers are getting with loop makers, and there's producers out there that just make loops. And then they send it to a producer who just puts the drums, and it's collaborative, it's cool, but it is some different shit, bro.
It is. And songwriting's gotten like that too. I mean, not gotten, it's been like that for a minute, where you get a song would start, and let's say the label liked it, or an artist or a manager or whatever, and then they would go and like another writer would come in and rewrite this, and then another writer, and before you had freaking like between the producers and all their sub producers and contributors, and on the writer side you got 7 people writing. The record be like 20 people on a record, which is wild. To me, I feel like it has its positives and negatives because you can polish the record to its like perfection, which has happened, but you could also just take the life out of it after a while. You know what I mean?
Cooks in the kitchen.
And then you go back and listen to the demo. You're like, that demo shit was as raw way it was. You know what I mean? Like, so you can kind of overproduce shit. You can overwrite shit. But overall, though, no, I think it's helped because
and Splice. Are you a?
Nah, I'm not a really big Splice guy. But I mean, listen, I appreciate it. But Splice to me is like, it's like another tool to do the same thing we all do anyway.
It's like sampling. It's
sampling. It's sampling, and it's another version of sampling. Now, like if let's say a record goes so crazy that it was identifiably done by Splice, then maybe you'd go make a record on that because to chase that vibe. But I don't think there's anything you can't do it, because it's not like a sample is going to be sampled by Spice be so much better.
Right.
There's shit that does what Spice does too. You know what I mean?
I was always just a sampler.
Yeah, me
and when
too.
that
I mean,
era
hip-hop,
came,
man.
when that Scott Storch era came, when you had to start playing everything, I was like, I hate this shit.
For real, that's funny, man.
Yeah, because I started sampling. Like I would just, I didn't come from sampling like digging records. I came from fucking Cool Edit and downloading MP3s on Napster and taking loops and sampling in the MPC and shit.
But hip-hop was built on that, man.
Exactly.
That's the part about sampling that. Like, I know it's a nightmare and the clearance and all the craziness, but the essence of hip-hop was that. But when Storch came, I also liked it in that, like, because think about it. When Storch came into the scene, it was really Dr. Dre came into the scene. You know what I mean? Because Scott was playing everything.
Right.
And he's a crazy musician. So to a degree, I liked it because it was like, damn, that's dope. Like,
Right.
this
Oh, yeah, you
music.
definitely appreciate the musicianship
Yeah,
of it,
exactly.
But
yeah, frustrating.
It's like, I can't do that.
Well, me and my brother had to think, we're one finger productions, bro. Like, what are you doing?
I love just chopping samples and quarter bars and just stabbing them up and doing some dope shit,
But you still do that.
Yeah, now you can. Yeah, now you can,
Yeah, but I mean, even when Scott was doing it, he was at his heyday and he was like peaking, there were still producers like that were sampling, like, Just Blaze and, I mean, a million of them. We're still doing the hip-hop shit is working just as well, But Scott just brought that new energy, It was a new polished energy, which is dope.
Yeah, no,
it's amazing.
Speaking of Scott Storch, I mean, not him per se, but do you have any crazy studio stories that you could? You don't have to.
I got too many, man.
You don't have to drop any names, but do you have any?
The names
anything?
for yeah. No, for sure, man. There was definitely like
any crazy person that had like a bubble machine when they recorded, like any wild.
Oh, I mean, yeah, like definitely there was like artists, especially when we were recording or tracking, like putting the club lights in the studio and fucking fog machines. There was like a club in there and shit.
Yeah.
That would happen a lot, but it was more like I think like just the personalities. You know what I mean? Like I remember with Cash Money one time we were like. I think, and mind you, this is before like Wayne was even like Wayne was a little kid. Like
we're talking late '90s now.
Right, we're talking about when Juvenile was like their their main artist. Right. So I remember one time we were in Circle House working, and they would come with the bus. They'd come 50, 60 deep. So I go out to the pool room to go get I think it was Baby I was getting. Well, anyway, someone to come and prove a mix, and I go in there, bro, and the shirts are off. There's chains on the fucking pool table. Like $100,000 or playing, and smoked out. It was crazy. And you walk in that scene. I remember looking at my sister like, we live in a crazy world.
Yeah, it's a wild time. Yeah,
but definitely like there was some crazy characters that have been in and out of studios, and I'm sure there's stories I even forgot. But there was just interesting characters, bro.
Yeah,
people that would be like, what the fuck is he doing? And then come out and be like, whoa, okay, that's what.
Yeah,
that's just that gets them going. Like.
Creative
people are weird, bro.
Yeah,
so.
like I think was it like Wayne has like porn like playing in the studio or some shit when he records. Like what? There's no other thing.
Yeah, and then when you're in a studio, when you're like in 3 different rooms, you could literally walk 3 different universes. Like you know what I'm saying? You walk in, John's working, fucking porn's on, it's crazy. You walk in the other room, and they got candles, everything's chilled out, zen. I'm like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? But no, I mean. Without mentioning any names, people got crazy, jumped in the pool. I remember when I worked at 50, like he had just got off the road and he came in, all the freaking, everybody was, back then it was wearing the freaking, the vest, the bulletproof vest and shit. And everybody jumped in the pool. It was hilarious to watch. So it was like a pile
jumping in the pool of bulletproof vests? That's wild.
No, but it was a pile of bulletproof vests and guns and shit at the side of the pool. It was like a picture, man. I'm like, damn, I should have taken a picture of that shit. It was hilarious.
Shit.
But yeah, people got wild, but I don't think anybody got stupid crazy. I mean, definitely a few that got loose, but I mean, I got crazy stupid loose too.
Yeah.
People get stupid, but overall, people were just weird. Like not weird, but I'm gonna say like different. You just see people that
creatives
are creatives always they always surprise you with something.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, and there's some crazy stories, but if I tell them, it'd be hard without mentioning the name.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Anything else you wanna promote? Anything else you want to touch on?
I never really promote anything, but just like
your social media so people can follow.
Yeah, mine are all. I'm at Lou Diaz and then LouDiaz.net. I'm still actively working all the time doing. Like I said, I'm involved in a bunch of other projects or whatever, and I like keeping it open, man. I love that shit. I love this whole evolving shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It keeps shit interesting because like we were saying before, it is nice to keep a standard, but at the same token, then it gets stagnant. So even if the change isn't something I like,
right.
I like the change.
Yeah, I went on a rant on Twitter two days ago, bro, talking about, because as a DJ, I'm telling artists, and I even said it, and I said this, and because there's so many people in the hip hop world that aren't Spanish speakers, they don't understand how Bad Bunny could be. I'm telling Bad Bunny might be bigger than Michael Jackson eventually.
Bro.
You know what I'm saying?
They're huge.
He's selling out state crazy.
No,
and the people, and I'm trying to explain to someone who doesn't speak Spanish that this music, like, why is he so big? Is it his lyrics? I'm like, bro, and I told him, I'm like, and this is just something I say because I say crazy shit without thinking about it. But
By the way, you're Spanish, man. You get your Spanish.
Yeah, I'm almost fluent.
Yeah,
bro.
man, I love it.
But I told people, I said, you will never be the greatest of all time if your average BPM of your catalog is below 85 beats per minute. You can't. In my opinion, it was just my opinion. Right. You know what I'm saying?
No, but that's the DJ opinion, which is true.
Right.
Yeah.
You cannot be it's like these artists, they just go right to 70 BPM, 65 BPM, 75 BPM, and they stay there and make the same song over and over. And I'm redundant. Like, bro, even the promoter.
It's funny how, like, from a DJ perspective, you notice that shit so much.
I tell artists, I tell them, if you send me a record, and some of them don't know what BPM means, I have to explain to them. I'll tell them, if you send me a record that is over 90 BPM, you have 3 times the chance that I play it over a record that you send me that's below 80 BPM. And they don't understand it. I'm like, bro, because with this BPM, this BPM is saturated. You're competing with Lil Baby. You're competing with but a DJ wants to play a DJ has to play all different types of BPMs. I can't just give you the appetizer the whole night. I got to give you dessert, entree, vegetables, fruit. So I got to give you all type of vibes. So
when that shit is saturated, you're fucked.
So what happens when I have to go to 120 BPM, 118 BPM? I'm still playing Piccolo. I'm still playing I'm So Hot grind mode. And they still go off.
They still go off,
But I'm trying to explain to artists, like, bro, fill that void. Fill that void, you know? Like,
you know what it is? That's one thing that I appreciate in artists too, is like, I like when artists surprise you. Like, I know you got, you know, it's hard. It takes balls to do it, because when you build an audience and they like you for what you're doing, it's hard to be like, let me throw them a little, you know what I mean? Because I know, that makes sense. I see why you wouldn't do it. But I do respect when artists do that shit. Right. And sometimes it works great, you know?
Right.
Because that's evolution. That's really like, and your artist, believe it or not, if your artist really fucks with you, it'll work, you know?
Yeah.
So like, that's why I like artists that, and believe it or not, artists who have staying power, you're right. They move around, bro. They give you different shit. You're like, whoa, they're not afraid, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I Instagram pictured Bad Bunny's track list on my Serato with all the BPMs in order.
Right.
And he has songs 70, 74, 78,
Correct.
81, 83, 85, 90, 95, 100, 15, 110, 117, 118.
Right.
He has and I think that is an underrated aspect of what artists really need to understand is hop on all type of.
And you're talking about, you know, like rhythmic, you're talking about like, because obviously speed's a better, you know, a much more party feel, but even like the same thing in flavors, like as far as like lyrics or content or what it's about, it's dope to be like, you know, sometimes you be talking about the same shit every record, you know, I mean, listen, the audience got a short-term, you know, I guess attention span today, and that's because of social media. Right. So you kind of got to give them what they like, but when you start giving them the variety, I think it raises like your audience up a little bit. You know what I mean?
I told some young producers.
Don't be afraid.
I told them, I'm like, I want to challenge you. I want you to send me a pack that is over 90 BPM and you cannot use an 808.
That's dope. That's hard.
But we need grooves back. We need bass lines back, bro. Because I think the 808, and this is from someone who's like the master of the 808. You know what I'm saying? But it's tired already, bro. It makes everything redundant because you can't. You have no groove in the low end to bring different bops and different pockets. You know what I'm saying?
You know what I'm noticing though, which is good, and I think, you know, I have faith that in the new generations you're going to get more of a mix of shit. You know, like. Being in Atlanta made me go to Nashville a few times to work. I'm in the whole Atmos thing now. You know what I mean? We're mixed, which is, by the way, another.
That's what I want to talk to you about.
Bro, that shit is crazy. We definitely talk about that. But so going to Nashville, not to say Nashville's a country town, but of course, country music is big there. But even like I hear the trappy boom vibe entering and getting into the country vibe.
Right.
And that shit works fucking great.
Sounds good,
That sounds like a movie. So I'm thinking, man, that's dope. Like, so to me, I feel like that, just that, two styles that are super opposite of each other, coming together will bring something, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it'll just start changing shit up. Right. So like we were saying, do a record with no boom? Fuck yeah, do a record with no boom, because it just eliminates something that forces you to do something else, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I feel like the new generation's coming up, I have faith that, because everybody's gonna get tired of hearing the same shit. Eventually you're gonna have one guy say, let me try this.
Does a 120 and it's like, holy shit.
Now we're all back on this shit, you know what I'm saying?
That's why, and that's what gravitated me toward Latin more, and almost my parties are Latin, because it seems like the hip hop crowd now they're in a box and they only want to hear a certain. But Latin, you could play 70 BPM, 90. You could play Dembow. Dominican music is huge right now. It's 120, 125. So I feel like I love that the Latin culture is accepting to all different types of speeds and tempos. You know?
They're just they're not so pigeonholed in one vibe. And the other thing too, I was going to say to you, man. Now that you know Spanish real, Spanish is a real expressive language. You know what I mean?
Poetic.
Right. Like, in other words, there's more words. So, like, it's now, growing up here, but being fluent in Spanish made me realize after I really learned English real well, I was like, yo, we're limited. Like I can say this in 5 different ways in Spanish.
Right.
So that's why songs, sometimes when you say shit, you're like, damn, like color, like what you loved about what I love about Biggie, right? It was like how expressive, how you get fucking paint pictures.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Bad Bunny, they got a palette, man. It's amazing.
And then another thing I did, because Lou, I'll be honest with you, me studying Spanish as hard as I did for 5 years.
That's crazy. I
used music. Music helped because language is music.
It is. It is.
What I like about Spanish is that first of all, it's the second fastest language. So every syllable in Spanish is short. It's ta.
Right.
So when you're hearing Spanish, it's almost like I would compare English vocals, say they're like a certain type of saxophone, but Spanish vocals are more they're percussive because the language is more percussive. So when you hear someone sing or vocals in Spanish, it's more ta 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 ta.
Staccato.
The syllables are
You know, that's true.
Which is dope to me.
That's crazy, bro.
But yeah, brother. So in Wynwood, they have the first Atmos.
It's club.
Studio mixing room in there.
Okay. Gotcha. All right, cool.
So yeah, how do you feel about that now? That's a whole different thing Apple's pushing.
That's just amazing, man. Like surround sound for a while was there. We're always like, yeah, cool, whatever. But basically you mix in stereo. Because surround was always for movies. You know what I mean? But then once Apple jumped in and Tesla jumped in, and we're like, we're going to go with spatial audio. And for those who don't know, everybody knows what a surround sound system is now, right? When they call it a 5.1, that means just 5 speakers and a subwoofer. That's what the 5.1
most people, you're listening to music with a left and a right speaker, just 2 speakers. Stereo. Now they have 5. You have sounds behind you. So now when you listen to music, you might hear a sound behind you that moves from the left to the right and shit. And you're like, well, how is this new technology?
Well, but so the 5.1 is left, right, center, and rears, and a subwoofer. That was the standard that we all watched movies and we all did that shit for a while. Then it went to 7.1, where it was like 7 speakers, and now we're at 9.14, which is Atmos. What Atmos is they added top speakers.
Really?
So we have like the smallest format is left, center, right, side, rear, and 4 at the top. Shit. So what's crazy about it is you get this thing called phantom audio, where between the speakers you can place a sound that's coming from right there, but there's 2 speakers. So, listen, surround was dope. But when I went to Nashville, I went to John McBride's room, Blackbird Studios, and I heard, my first Atmos mix, that shit blew my mind. I was like, yo, this is crazy. Because it's like, if you love music, I don't care what kind of music you love, but any record you love that was mixed in Atmos, that shit will blow your mind. Because it's like a 3D version of the song.
Right.
You know what I mean? Bro, I don't know if have you done it yet or no?
What?
When I listen to a mix in Atmos, I gotta sit.
I feel like I've done it. I have these new Apple.
All right, cool. But in an Atmos room.
Oh,
bro,
no, I've never.
Shit is wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro, it's crazy. So I already done a couple of mixes in Atmos, in that world now, and I love it because I love what I do. But now it's like you said, the reverb tails can go over your head behind you, it's crazy.
How do you conceptualize the music now? Obviously, you want the drums to stay in the middle, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. The challenge has been that you kind of lost your center a little bit. Everybody went so wild.
Right.
I'm like, yo, bro, let's keep the kick right here in the center. You know what I'm saying? So you can get crazy. But I mean, I've been working on it for a very little time, but because it's basically a new, people have been working on it for years. But so, it's not like a super new industry, but it's now becoming the new thing. So it's a young, format that music is accepting. So it definitely takes it to a level in that, you got to rethink it. You got to think, all right, well, what are we keeping in the middle? What's the center? Because with stereo is easy. Kick a snare is always going to be mono in the middle. Now it's like, well, I can put the kick over here. Like Beck, the artist Beck did a record. His vocals were behind you the entire time. Wow. So you listen to the song and you're like, yo, this is wild. Like, what the fuck? He's behind me.
Yeah.
And you could really, it feels like he's behind you, which is wild. You know?
I mean, because I was talking with Derek, back in the day, you had the stereo imagery with a band in a live room, and you could still kind of position people in ways.
Yeah, now you could do that. I heard one of the big records that they did in Atmos to sort of demo everybody, that Dolby Atmos Labs. Matter of fact, Dolby Atmos Labs uses that room that I was in at Blackbird as the official room. So I heard, what's the song by Elton John, Rocket Man. Mm-hmm. Yo, that shit was like, because the dope part about I'm forgetting the engineer who did it, but he started it like a stereo mix. So which is dope. So he started it out and you're like, okay.
When the mix like automated.
Yeah, like as the record opened up,
Holy
two guitars jumped up, and shit went over your head. You're like, what the fuck, yo?
But what's happening though? It's just like just things are just panning different ways.
Yeah, they're called objects. They're called objects. So like right now you pan left and right. Or you can do like auto panners. You can do some spatial shit with like phasing, which is cool, but it's not actually that, But now it's like, imagine taking a joystick in a 3D sphere and just moving the sound wherever you want.
I'm trying to think how you would apply that to music though. I can see you doing cool things with percussion and shit.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Like for example, you got like it depends on the song. So like, let's say you have something that's a signature sound. Sometimes people have a signature, like say "Rockin' Man" by Elton John. If you look at that record in the hook when it says "Rockin' Man," it has like a siren kind of sound that goes. That when you hear it in the song, you'll go, I remember that. Well, they have that shit lift off over your head. It'll come from behind you.
Got you.
And so like when the song starts, you hear Elton John singing, and the band's like in front of you. Just like a regular stereo mix. And then when the hook comes in, the acoustic guitars are here. So when that shit opens up, you're like, the stereo field just fucking, it's like nuts. Wild, yeah. And shit goes over your head. It's because you can place it so it makes you go like, what the fuck,
Yeah. Which
is dope. It's just a new experience. To me, it elevates what we do to a better experience. So for me, I'm excited about more and more people getting the actual setup at home because you down mix the spatial audio, you down mix
the club, bro.
Like a club. Yeah. Now, I don't know how well it would work, but it might if you have it set up right where the people are sitting in.
It would have to be
in the middle.
I think it would have to be a small.
More, more of a musical experience vibe. But I don't know. I don't know. I definitely know that the big companies are behind it, which makes everybody go and invest.
Right.
Like I'm ripping my room apart and
really,
because I'm working in Nashville a lot doing it, but now I'm going all Atmos now. Yeah.
Dope, bro.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it.
Shit.
Just, new possibilities, man.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Lou Diaz.
Yes, sir.
Social media one more time.
I am at Lou Diaz. LouDiaz.net. Simple.
My brother, love. Thank you for pulling up, bro.
Bro, I appreciate you, man. Yeah, for sure, man. Anytime, man.